there's a school of thought that says it's not necessary for children to know how to dissect a frog, for instance, and those sort of things are irrelevant. There's a school of thought that says we don't need to know about Shakespeare and those literature, and you don't need to know the history of when when Hitler invaded Poland and all those things, and that the focus should be focus on STEM, focus on things that will actually be translatable in the marketplace. I wonder where you stand on this big philosophical debate that is raging.
Two answers come to mind. I'm referring again to Bloom's taxonomy and different levels of thinking. So maybe to some of our viewers or listeners who's not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, there's different levels in thinking that you start with understanding, remembering, then it's application. After that, it's analysis, evaluation, and then creation.
Wow.
So that's your level of thought. So if you need to create something, you have to have an understanding. You must remember what you understood. You must be able to apply that in a new setting. You must analyze, looking at what skills or what parts of the content do I need to create this new thing that I'm creating, right?
Yeah.
You evaluate, is it working? Is it not working? How can I replace that aspect? And then you create. So since we're talking about business, maybe that's a good analogy to use, right?
Yes.
So you need all those levels until you can create.
This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We enthuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Mogobe here, your host. It gives me great pleasure to bring yet another entrepreneur. The objective of the show, as we always say, is to enthuse, energize, but we do so by sharing entrepreneurial ideas and bringing entrepreneurs who are going to give you fresh perspective on this, on your entrepreneurial journey. So please do the honorable thing and strike that subscribe button, and of course don't forget the notification bell so that when these episodes drop, you are notified. And thank you so much because we need your support. Do subscribe. I learned that 2/3 of you viewers watch without subscribing, and it's really costing us collectively, both you and me, because we're unable to grow, we're unable to attract the quality guests that you want, and we can only do so if our algorithms are aligned, and they can only be aligned if you subscribe. So sorry for that long diatribe, but please hit that button. Meantime, a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget to get yourselves a copy of my book, Nuggets of Grit. Only retails for 350 pula, which is close to nothing really, and it's available from Exclusive Books, and it's also available here from Mogobe Plaza. So be sure to get yourself a copy. Now let me welcome my guest. I want to pronounce this name correctly. Hannelie Raubenheimer.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much, and welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Mogobe.
Would you care to just tell the viewer about yourself, share a little bit about your academic background and your journey in a very condensed form?
With pleasure. As you've introduced me, I'm Hannelie Raubenheimer, and I've been in education for the past 20 years. And I'm incredibly passionate about education. I also hold a bachelor's degree, postgraduate certificates in education, honors degree in curriculum development and instructional design. And then I'm also currently enrolled for a master's degree in educational law and policy. A little bit about my role. I've been recently appointed end of last year, just the beginning of the last term. I was appointed as the executive head of GIS, Gaborone International School. And when I'm asked as to how I see my role, Mr. Mogobe, it's really about enabling, empowering key role players within the school to live their educational passion that I so evidently see within the school. So it really is for me to give direction, to give guidance, and to allocate the resources that's really need to run such a successful school. And then about my leadership philosophy, I've read a quote from Sheryl Sandberg that reads that leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that it lasts in your absence.
Wow.
And that is really my aim in having joined GIS.
This is great. This is great. What were you doing before you joined GIS?
I was a principal within the same holding company that GIS belongs to. Within Advitech, I did that for a couple of years, primary and pre-primary school. And before that, I worked for another company. I was the curriculum manager, a company with 16 preschools within their portfolio. So it was really my responsibility to train teachers, recruit teachers, principals, look at the curriculum, make sure that we do the necessary quality assurance of that. Prior to that, I was an English lecturer and also an English teacher within public and private schools.
Okay. What about ADV Learn? What is the connection between, in terms of ownership? What's the ownership structure, ADV Learn and GIS?
So Advitech is the holding company. It's a JSE listed company that's situated in South Africa. Then we have 3 divisions within the company. There's a schools division, a tertiary division, and then a resourcing division. So GIS being a school, we are within the schools division. But within this division, we also have Advitech International, which means that we have schools within South Africa, but also Botswana and Kenya and Ethiopia. Together with the Rosebank College, that's also one of our tertiary offerings within our division. So that's more or less the
GIS
structure.
is part of how many schools internationally?
118.
118.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes, it's a lot. And it goes a long way in terms of sustainability and sharing resources and getting the proper guidance, in terms of where we need to go.
All right. Tell me what's unique about GIS. What's so special about the school?
GIS was established in 1993, and it's always been the vision to unlock potential, to open people's minds, and with that, to unlock their talents and nurture the talents so that we can develop and raise leaders to contribute to the world. It was acquired by Advitech in 2015, and I think that it can be seen as a period of transition, but for me, it is really a period of investment that has set us apart from any competitor, if you will, or anyone else within the market. Our offering is very unique in that we offer a unique or a personalized learning journey for all of our students. So we do make use of platforms such as guided readers or AdviLearn, where we've invested in reading specifically, mathematics, as well as science, where AI assists us in gauging as to where every student is within their personalized learning journey, and then giving personalized exercises for them to build until they reach the outcome that we've identified
and I get
for them.
the impression that your holding company is prepared to invest quite a bit, because I've seen large halls, large structures coming up, and I think I've seen 2 of a similar kind. I don't know what are those halls about? What's going on there?
I'll guide you. Let's pretend we're driving down the road in Kubu, right?
Yes, Kubu Road.
We're starting
in
from the
Block
top,
8,
yes, and Marapua Tutla, and we're driving all the way to the A1. What you'll find on your left first is our pre-primary, and it's been completely revamped. We are incredibly proud of the investment there, but also what we are able to give to our students. I must emphasize that it really, at the end of the day, our heart is to invest into our students. So we don't do these things just for appearance. I'm glad that you've seen it and that you've noticed it.
It looks grandiose. As a person in property, that's what I know. It looks grandiose. It looks
so
huge.
that is the pre-primary, brand new. Not only the building, also equipment, furniture that's inside of the pre-primary. Carry on driving on your left, the first big building that
Yes.
you would see as a hall. That is our primary school, the new block, new addition to our primary school that also has a robotics lab amongst other interesting venues. You pass then the new admin block, which is also quite visible from the street, and then it's followed by the technological center on your left. That is the new high school block.
Yeah.
So we've had the first floor, 2 floors for a while, and then over this December we also did the 3rd floor.
Wow.
And we've turned that into 5 ICT labs and
Yeah.
6 science labs
Yeah.
that we fit into.
And the
those spaces.
buzzword, of course, is quality education. Wow, what's your definition of quality education? Exactly what are you offering that can be described as quality education?
It's about knowing the student. Quality is about knowing what that particular student in your class needs and what investment is needed to speak to that need. So I can broadly categorize it into 3. We will need these buildings, we will need these venues so that we have the space. The more labs we have, it means the more often our students can actually go to these labs. So facilities are incredibly important for us to offer quality education. Next would be the equipment. So you can have these buildings, but what are you filling them with? I'm not just talking furniture, I'm talking around the drones, the VR headsets that we were able to acquire end of last year. And then also within the classroom then is the teacher. The investment that we get or that we put into recruiting well-qualified teachers who speak our language in terms of passion and understanding the need of the individual child. And then the last one would be the platforms that we are using, such as the ones I've made mention of.
The
at
drones.
Learn.
I'm curious
And so-
about the drones.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're teaching them at what level about drones?
So my most recent, maybe I can share, because it was so interesting and inspiring to me, was a visit to the robotics lab in the primary school. And what was interesting to me was the sense of pride these students have in having instructed the robots or the drone in doing what it needs to do, what this child or the student wants it to do, right? So it knows what to do in terms of the tablet, how to program it. But the sense of pride overrides shyness. They're so proud to present to me that, look what I've done, look what I've created. So in my most recent visit, 2 boys showcased to me that they've put a hula hoop in a certain place in the hall, and then they were able to instruct the drone to go there, to fly through this
hula
hula
hoop,
hoop.
yeah.
And what an amazing experience for them, building confidence.
Yeah.
It's skills that they will need in terms of 21st century skills, but also what it means for them in terms of their person, you know.
Yeah. Another buzzword would be outcome-based education. What outcomes are you targeting? And just unpack that phrase for me. Yeah.
So we moved actually on from OBE, outcomes-based education, to IBL. So IBL stands for inquiry-based learning. And it is exactly what it says, inquiry. So I would say back in the day, one would have themes, you know, we explore a theme. What makes a difference now, Mr. Mogobe, is that we ask of our children to inquire. Let's explore. And what topics are there in the world that you are curious about? What is it that we want to learn more about? And an inquiry can last quite a bit of time, because it depends on how much questions there are about that we can answer, and how we can guide them to get to that answer. So OBE, IBL, I think that the major difference would be teacher-led. So the teacher is the one with the knowledge and always giving it onto, to the students, while with IBL, we are empowering our students. We're not teaching them what to think anymore, but how to think. We teach them how to inquire. What kind of questions do you need to ask to get the answers that you are looking for?
Yeah. Now, can you say something about the results over the last few years since you guys took over in 2015? Is there any marked improvement? What can you say about the outcomes and the results you've been getting?
I can comment on the PSLE, which was recently released in December. So we have seen a 3% improvement
Wow.
in the AB pass rate from 2023 to 2024. And that is incredibly important to us.
3%. Now, what is the pass rate now?
81.5.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
that
considered
means,
very high.
maybe I must just put that in context to some of our viewers or listeners. It means that that's the number of students that's passed with an A or B symbol. And that, viewing it like that, you understand the efforts that goes into ensuring that we obtain those results.
So what about countrywide? How do you feature? Are you number 1, number 2, number 3, or you don't want to blow your trumpet that much?
It's a different one to comment on, I suppose, because you can look at it in public schools, you can look at it in private schools. But in terms of private schools, we are number 1 on PSLE results.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the other categories, because you are 3 schools, right?
Correct.
There's primary, middle, as in secondary, and then what's the other one?
So we have a pre-primary, then there's primary, so that's the lower and upper primary, and then the high school.
Okay. You want to blow your trumpet about those other results? Or?
So IGCSE results are being released today as I'm sitting here.
Wow.
I'm awaiting to hear how we have done.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I'm not able to share that with you as I don't have the data yet. But today is a big day.
By the time this podcast is uploaded, I'm sure everyone would have seen them. But do you have how's your gut feel about your performance?
We always aim for improvement. It's non-negotiable for us as a school, but also, again, taking it back to the student, knowing what it means for them, having to obtain certain results to achieve what they need to achieve, to enroll in the tertiary studies that they'd like to enroll and follow the career that they've envisioned for themselves.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we are always motivated to do better. We have not seen a decline as of recent, so I'm hoping that we will continue on this trajectory of improvement.
And do you go as far as A-level?
We don't.
Okay.
So we end at Form 4.
At Form 4?
Yes.
Any reason why you don't consider A-level?
At the moment, when we have done a survey, the interest didn't seem to be sustainable for us to offer that. It's not something, we are entrepreneurial. We look at the market every year, so it's never a hard no.
Yes.
But as of at this moment, the research that we've done.
But in the country, I mean, O-level is sufficient for people to enter into tertiary, to enter to university. So you don't, strictly speaking, you don't need A-levels.
Correct.
Unless you're aiming for certain foreign universities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how successful have you been in terms of ensuring that your students transition easily to tertiary?
It's a long journey. I'm going to try and give you a short answer to that, but it doesn't start in Form 4. It doesn't even start in the high school. It really starts as soon as you enroll your child with us. And that's what I mentioned earlier, the importance of teaching them how to think and not what to think. Because we believe in transferable skills. I'm sure that you know about the 4th Industrial Revolution, and we need to prepare students for jobs that we don't even know what they are, but we know what skills will be important to build on. And because our emphasis is a lot on that collaboration, communication, working with diverse groups, it enables them to transition a lot easier than for students who were really focusing on content only to master that content. So the feedback that we receive is very good. It does seem from research that we've done that a whole lot of our Form 4s do tend to enroll for commercial tertiary studies, which is an interesting stat to look at.
Because they want to go into business.
That's it. But it means that they've got those skills.
Yes.
That they can create. You know, if we look at Bloom's taxonomy, for example, you know that the highest level of thinking, according to Bloom's, is that of create. So if you can create a business, it means that you must put all those different levels together, from understanding up to evaluation, creation. And if that's the choice of our students, it means that they've been given all the other levels and skills to do so.
This is very interesting. Now, the curriculum that you get from the Ministry of Education, do you take it as is, or do you improve upon it, or do you add? Are you able to, not to manipulate, but certainly to enhance it? in any way?
We do enhance because we have the facilities, we have the equipment, we have the resources.
Yes.
Let me put it under that umbrella to enhance it. So being part of Advitech, we have a central academic team. And they do the research on best practices. And they visit us often, and we in continuous conversations with them as to what is happening in the rest of the world and what trends do we follow and all that. So, yes, we do follow the local curriculum in the primary school. We do write the PSLE, but it's definitely fortified by best practices. So I can give you an example, would be the robotics that I mentioned earlier,
yes.
the AdviLearn that we've mentioned, selection of subjects. And I think it's the approach thereto that really adds to the curriculum that we are offering, the inquiry-based learning approach that we have.
The overall philosophy.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, this is interesting. Now, a parent might be watching us and scratching their heads thinking, should I send my child? Should I send my child? Would you say there is that little extra special something, if you like, that you offer? In other words, you've touched on robotics, the buzzword now, or the common phrase, the common thing that everybody talks about is AI, artificial intelligence, things like that. Is there any extra offering that you can share with the parent?
To summarize that in one line, our aim is for our students to achieve their aspirations through superior education. And I think it summarizes it so well because what makes it different is it's all about them, their aspirations. How can we help you get to where you would like to be through superior education? So it's not just excellence, it's not just what you would find at any other school. It's a cut above the rest. And I think everything else I've mentioned to you already qualifies what I mean by superior education. And those two things are incredibly important. We remind ourselves of that on a daily basis, that we make sure that is what our offering really speaks to.
And when we were prepping for this, there was mention of enrichment subjects such as French, computer science, ITC, and travel and tourism and economics. Am I to understand these would normally not be available in the ordinary curriculum, but you've added them on to enhance it, like we're saying, to enhance your offering?
We can speak both to the primary school and then to the high school.
Yes.
And they have the supplementary or additional subjects that we offer. So for primary school, it would be music, arts and crafts, also the robotic club, traditional dancing. Those are the things that we also offer. In the
As
high school,
extracurriculum activities.
Yes, we do.
For which the parent doesn't have to pay extra.
Yes.
Or they do.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's part of what we are doing. It's part of our offering.
Yes.
And because we value that.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
Then in the high school, we have a wide subject variety. So it's up to 18 subjects that you can choose.
That's a lot.
And then some of these subjects that you have in Form 1 are not continued in Form 2, 3, 4. And then we offer them as additional subjects or clubs for the rest of their school career, such as robotics and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a tennis court there. How does it fit into all this?
Extramural program, it's incredibly important for a number of reasons. One would be school can be stressful. I mean, we've all been in school.
Yes.
I've read a bit about your book and your experience.
Okay, thanks.
And I think it's important to inspire our students, you know, to make it, we are the home of learning. So we really want our students to feel at home and inspired to study and to feel a part of the school. But it can be a stressful experience just because there are certain pressures in homework and understanding the content, as would be the case for any school-going, adolescent. But sport alleviates a bit of that. You know, it's a different place where you get to meet with your peers in the afternoon.
Yes.
Different arena, a different platform that you can just debrief a little bit after a busy day of academics. And the same really is for your relationship between the teacher and the student. because the classroom relationship, it's very task driven. There's results at stake, and we need to conquer.
It's very formal.
It is, but when we practice or train for sports, we're afforded an opportunity to see one another in a different light.
Yeah.
So that's just two of the benefits, not to mention the
issues of physical and mental health.
Yes, that
aspect.
is it. Then the physical and mental benefits that you've mentioned now. So we do invest for those reasons, but then also we do compete. We competitively, there's a number of schools that we compete against, and all the major sports codes. So that's the facilities that you are able to see from the road. Is the
By major, you're
basketball
referring to
courts
what?
and
Tennis, rugby, what else?
we do football or
Yeah,
soccer.
Soccer.
We do basketball, tennis, netball, and swimming. We've got 3 different pools on our premises, having different
Including
purposes.
Olympic size, I
No.
would imagine. Okay.
25-meter pool.
Okay.
And a learn to
That is
swim
close
pool.
enough.
Even for the little ones, a learn to swim pool aimed at their age and what they need to become confident in the water. And they've got their lessons as part as extramural as well. So, and then field and track. Those are the facilities that we've invested in and that
Okay.
we promote our students to really contribute to and participate.
I normally ask my guests to share some of their triumphs and major achievements in terms of highlights. If you were to run through your highlight reel, what sort of things would you touch on?
Is this for me personally or the school?
They're both. You're intertwined now. You're one and the same.
I suppose so. I'm humbled by the opportunity to be in the position that I am and to have the influence that I can have in this position. I almost see myself as the caretaker of the people that I work alongside with. And it's for me, like I shared earlier, to make sure that they are happy at work, because we spend most of our hours of the day at our workplaces, and our families often get what's left of us, you know.
The
So
crumbs.
for me,
They get the crumbs sometimes.
and especially in education, I must say we freely give of ourselves, very sacrificial in a certain sense, because we won't stop until the outcome is met for this individual, this child whose name and surname I know, whom I've spent the whole year with, and I need to get him to reach his potential, which I know he's able to do, you know. So for me, a highlight is being in the role that I am. Definitely, I'm not a very hierarchical person, but in terms of titles, it's the biggest title that I've been able to hold.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
It's a good title.
But it's humbling
Yeah.
in the same sense.
Because I
that
see
with
you
that
as a
responsibility.
chief of operations. That's how I see
in
you.
many ways, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for the school itself, have you won awards and things like that?
Yeah, we're notorious, you know, for having done so well. Like yourself, you all of a sudden realized this is the school we're talking about.
Yeah.
You've seen it. It's
Yeah.
impossible to miss us.
Yes.
Our results are often published in newspapers, and we receive the compliments for that. Within the company that, you know, the holding company, we also do very well. If we compare our results to what's out there in the 118 schools that we can compare ourselves with. We also compare our results internationally. There's what we call map testing. So we
What is
look
that?
as to, we take our students and we put them through a cognitive test in terms of numeracy, literacy, and where do they measure in terms of the skills and the content at this moment. And then we benchmark them to the rest of the world. Countries like New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and so forth. And then we can see as to where we're lacking and what skills or what content we need to build on it. So even there we are tracking very well. So I'm proud of the school for it depends on what metric you want to use, but there's ample metrics to make sure that we do keep
Well,
on
I suppose
performing.
the easiest one is the how they perform in terms of how they rate against the rest.
Yeah.
And of course, if there are specific students who have won trophies or awards, you know, those are the sort of common metrics.
PSLE, I can share that results, which I've done previously and being the number one private school.
Wow.
And
For a
then,
number of years.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, I believe.
Sure. I've recently joined, so for me, I'm not able to recall that now.
Okay. But at least
But
when
you've
you were
given me
there.
homework, yeah.
Yeah. When you were there, you were number one. Okay.
And what also comes to mind is one of our students having been taken taken up in the national basketball team
Wow.
of Botswana last year. So it's not all about academics, that
Yes.
is also a tremendous highlight for
Must
us
be
in
a tall guy.
celebrating with her.
Okay, it's a her. Okay. She
Yeah.
must be very tall when you say basketball. Yeah, so that is quite an achievement. And obviously you are new, but I've seen some schools are able to even track their children over a number of years and say, our former student has achieved this and this and this, successful entrepreneur, this and that and that. So you say you if you need more homework, I think that's what you should track them a bit more as to what they did eventually when they came out. Now, let's talk a little bit about the improvement in facilities. Are there any other major improvements that are in the offing that you are working on?
We're always contemplating as to what's next. It was important to us that we finish this last project well, and we finished the second week in December.
Oh,
That's how fresh this last project is.
wow.
Yes.
It's already now operational.
That's it, yeah.
Or it will be when you open.
That was ready, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had all the furniture inside the classrooms,
Wow.
all the equipment, the teachers that we've needed. They are all there, fully operational.
Okay.
So for us, I think before we
You
move
just
on
need to bring in the Minister of Education to open it officially.
we did that last year, April. That was the grand reopening
Oh.
of the school.
And who
Round
came?
about that time, Minister,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and the CEO of Advitech, and it was quite a.
Must have been all over the newspapers.
It was. There was quite a bit of exposure there. That was when we reopened because of the pre-primary being new,
Yeah.
the new primary block, and then 2/3 of what was brought onto the high school.
Okay.
But yeah, quality is important to us. So I want us to, before we think on what's next,
Yeah.
let's make sure that when we execute something, we do it well.
Yeah. And there are, of course, two sides to every coin: success, failure, challenges. So, this being an entrepreneurial show, what setbacks or challenges have you encountered, and how did you overcome them as an institution?
For us, traffic can be quite busy within Kubu Road.
Because you have those humps, those big humps. I always go, ouch!
That's
But
very
they're
true.
important. Yeah.
That's very true. And it's something that we're working on as to how, that's where we're currently at and wrapping our minds around, how could we possibly alleviate some of the congestion that we are experiencing. I mean,
Isn't that a good problem to have? It
It
shows
is.
there's demand.
It tests to the number of people who have faith in us to take control of their children's educational journey. That is a wonderful problem to have, but it's something from a client perspective that I think we're not getting 100% tick to that, and it's something that we need to consider.
Okay. And then, are there any issues associated in the area with areas you've identified which you need to improve upon in terms of the curriculum itself, the school itself?
I'll start with leadership. It's incredibly important to me to make sure that I have the right people on the bus, the right people on the right seats. I'm quoting Jim Collins, I'm sure
I've
many
read
of
that
people.
book, yeah. The book
people
Good to
will know.
Great.
That's
yeah.
it. That's
yeah.
it. And that's where I started when I joined, is to make sure that I get to know the people as quickly as possible, understand their role, understand that it's the right people in the right role, and then it's for me to have conversations and see what is your dream, what is it that your vision that you have for your role, how can I assist you to get to that dream, and what challenges are you experiencing in getting there. And that, I think, is an ongoing process within the school. And it's also different from one department to another. So we have the 3 different schools, but we also have different departments such as facilities, such as the admin, such as the IT, and I work with all of these groups. So that's currently where I am at in my journey, is to make sure that we have the right people in the right places, that they have what they need to do what they need to do or want to do, that it's aligned with the vision.
So you may at some point have that difficult conversation with some of them and say, look, you're not quite who you're looking for your own benefit, for our benefit, let's part ways. Sometimes you may have to do that in terms of getting people off the bus, as you said. I'm just...
That's true.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how you handle that process.
People are important to me, and I believe we all have a place to contribute. You've been wired and created in a specific way. There's things that energize you. There's things that excite you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that you cannot do it, but maybe it's not something that excites you.
Yeah.
So you're not putting the energy that you have into where we need it to be. And it's really an alignment discussion. It doesn't mean that we don't have something else for you or a different role in a different department.
Yeah.
Because it's a big school, there's a lot that needs to get done at the end of the day. So I'm mindful of the people I work with, their dreams, their aspirations, but I have to make it work. And those alignment discussions, they need to happen in a way that they see the benefit of it. Because if I can put you in a place where you excel, in a place that excites you, where you kind of lose track of time because you're so interested in the work that you're doing, then you are in the right place. And that's why I need to know the people that I'm working with, know the place I'm working with, so I can align the talent accordingly.
What about numbers? How many students at each level do you have?
So we have, this morning, before I left, I checked the numbers every day. We have 3,100 students collectively within the school. Yeah, that is a lot. And again, testament to how many parents in Gaborone trust us with this educational journey.
Is there still room for more?
There are. Yeah, we've got about 100 spaces left because we're not overpopulating. You know, we've got our capacity, and that's what we stick to.
Do you have like a guideline of the maximum number per class that you can...
That's it. So we don't have more than 30.
What? More than 30,
30 in a classroom. But again, I'm mindful in saying 30 physical people, students, and a teacher in the classroom, but we use these platforms, which I'm reiterating now, to make sure that it's a smaller learning environment. So we have that data of our individual students, and then we also make use of, especially within the primary school, what we call rotational teaching. And that means that there's different stations with different tasks set up in the class, and they don't all need the teacher to initiate. She's the facilitator, so she'll sit with 5 students at a time, and she'll do the work that she needs to explain to see whether they're grasping the concept. And then the rest of the stations are set up to reinforce that concept. So we're 30 in the class, but between the platforms and our approach, we actually have a smaller classroom environment.
Okay. The 3,100 you mentioned, how do they divide? How do they stack up?
So our pre-primary school being the smallest, give or take 350, 1,400 for the primary, and the balance about 1,600 for our high school.
So high school is the biggest focus. All right, and then now there's always a challenge with parent participation in student activities. We've tried over the years in terms of having those parent teachers associations and whatnot, and it's always a challenge. How are you tackling that, getting the parents involved in the education of their children and getting them to be hands-on?
We had a staff meeting upon opening the school, as one would have, and part of what I spoke to was the importance of communication. And in communication at a school, I really see a triangle. It's the student on top of the triangle, always the most important, and then the bottom 2 corners would then be the parents and the school. And the stronger the triangle, the better for the student. There's so many benefits in us talking to one another, making sure that the parent understands what the progress is during the term, not only waiting for the reports. We do have those termly meetings that we have with parents, but apart from, I want to say,
How do you
this
get
is
them
formal.
engaged? The challenge is getting those parents involved and engaged.
We have an open door policy. It sounds very cliche when I say that, but what I'm trying to get to is we talk a lot. We don't wait for an incident to happen. We don't wait until we realize your child is lacking until we reach out. So the stronger the dialogue is, the stronger the participation, because we are in continuous communication with one another. You cannot help but be actively involved because we are roping you in all the time, as and when we talk to you.
Via WhatsApp, via emails,
Yes.
and so on.
And then we are mindful of many of our parents being busy. We have respect for that. We're also trying to make it easier for them. So on a practical note, what we've done in our letterheads, for example, any communication that goes out, on the left-hand side, it has all the email addresses of anyone that you might be looking for to save you time so that we can enhance the dialogue. And it says, talk to us. Have a question, reach out to us. And then we write the letter, and at the bottom, there's a summary. So if you're too busy to read it, because it happens, at the bottom, there's a quick
Just read
summary.
the summary, yeah.
What time, where does the child have to be, what is the date, what does he need, and then when you have the time you can read the rest. So it's really having a relationship with our parents, understanding where they are coming from, understanding what they need, and knowing our role is to facilitate that too.
And how strong is your PTA?
We don't have a PTA.
Why is that?
At the school, because that would be the holding company's policy, is that there's not a PTA.
It's not necessary.
It's not formalized. I would say it's not
Because
formalized.
that is the traditional way of trying to rope in the parents.
Yes, yes. But we are very people-driven.
Yeah.
You don't have to be on the PTA to have a conversation with me.
No, you don't.
You can reach me. We have a lot of walk-ins.
Yeah.
And we're happy to set aside whatever we are doing to speak to any of our parents. So we haven't formalized that, but we do think we also do, though, an NPS on a yearly basis,
What
a
do you call
survey.
NPS?
That is a survey that we send out to our parents, and we ask them a lot of questions. How do they experience the school? And we take that very seriously, both in quantitative and qualitative data that we then get from that. And we build our strategy for the year on that.
Wow.
So
that
they have a
sounds-
strong voice, and we give them feedback on that.
Wow.
We have coffee with the heads once a month actually, where it's an online webinar, and our parents, from the comfort of their home, they can tune in and listen, and we just share what's happening at the school. They ask questions. I quite like the forum. When you are in a hall, people are maybe less likely to say how they feel, or may raise any questions that they really have. So on this webinar, then questions are asked on the side, and the school management team answers the questions as and when they arise. So it's very open, and we welcome our parents to have a voice, to share their opinion, and we give feedback as often as
That's
we can.
impressive. That's very impressive. Now, as a person involved in podcasting, as a podcaster myself, I was curious to learn that you have a media center, or you're working on one. Tell me about your media center and what you seek to achieve through it.
So life has changed a bit. The world has, evolved from maybe taking a book as it was in the times of a library. I do see the value of a library, absolutely. I spoke a bit earlier about the importance of reading and all that. But a media center is so much more. So in that, then, the equipment that one would need to access the platforms, which I've also mentioned earlier, your AdviLearn. So if a student is not able to maybe do all that work within the given lesson period, they can also do that at a later stage, and then do the research that they are required to do for many of the assignments that they receive. Yes.
So what's in there physically in the media center? What are they exposed to?
So there are a range of textbooks that they can use also, and then the ICT equipment.
I'm expecting fancy camera equipment and things like that. None of that.
Well, that would be more. There's different venues for that. So we have all, which you have alluded to now, but the robotics lab would have, for example, a 3D printer, and it will have a laser cutter, all equipment that one would associate with that room. But that's a dedicated room for that. So we call it a maker's space, where students can create what they want to create in
because
there.
the media center in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was thinking in terms of you know, guiding content creators, helping students, maneuver the digital space and navigate that field and teach them on how they can actually start thinking about earning a living through that kind of media. It's not that. Or is it intended to be that long term?
We're not there yet, but you did ask me earlier what are the next steps, and I think you've given me an idea as to what direction we can take and put our efforts to.
Because now you can make a living of the internet, of all these platforms. Now, we spoke about the facelift. Is it still ongoing? And if so, what is the next big thing on the facelift?
For now, we are done, and we'll see as to how much space we have. We've already gone up in the air.
Yeah,
you know.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you very much. But for now, we are done with the third phase and completing the high school, and then we'll see and see what our students need.
The track and field is complete.
Yeah.
The basketball court complete. And the swimming pool, you have 3. You're not going to have that big Olympic one yet. You're happy with those. Oh, the kids don't need the big one. They can still. You don't need the Olympic. It serves purpose. Yeah. Now, I still want to get back to, because this is an entrepreneurial show, education as a business. Somebody might be watching and wondering whether this is an area where is it sufficiently lucrative for people to think in terms of a school as an income generating entity. In other words, is there money to be made in education in this format? That's what my viewers are curious about, in addition to the other things.
There are various schools of thinking here. So you get the public education and public schools. Then you get NPOs. So that would be...
NPO stands for?
Non-profit organizations. So they sometimes do have their own schools. But it's not for profit.
Yes.
And then you have a school such as GIS. Then being part of the holding company Advitech that is for profit because it is a JSE listed company.
And it's answerable to shareholders.
Yes. So to answer the short answer to your question would be yes, it's lucrative. Otherwise there wouldn't have been companies such as Advitech, Curo, to mention only 2. Universally or worldwide there's quite a few. So it is lucrative, but it remains a sensitive topic. Because we are talking about children, we are talking about human lives, shaping and molding. And oftentimes to balance that conversation, what does for-profit education mean, is a difficult one to have with people. How I usually explain that is for-profit education is to reinvest. We would not have been able at GIS to provide the students with the facilities, the equipment, and the quality of teacher that we have if it was not for-profit education. That has enabled us to return that investment into the school.
That's a very good answer. So, but it's a highly capital-intensive undertaking for it to be workable.
Absolutely.
So it has, high barriers of entry, as it were. It's not for everyone.
And again, the privilege of being part of Advitech, because it is an educational company which understands exactly what you've mentioned now. If you're not in education, to just open up a alone standing school, it's difficult because you don't fully understand what all your overheads would be. You know
Yes.
what, and it's continuous investment. Maybe it's you have the capital to start it
Yeah.
and to build it, and there it is, and you've got your teachers and there's equipment, but sustainability to
It's always
move
an
with the
issue.
times.
Yeah.
And we are fortunate that we are moving with the times as we identify the needs of our students. As the school grows, we are able to continuously invest.
Yeah.
B- yes.
Are you able to tell us who's behind the school? Who's the if you like, the principal shareholder? Who's the main mind, or the controlling mind behind the entity?
So Advitech CEO is Jeff White.
Jeff White. Okay.
Yes. And then regional managing director is Horace Mpanza.
This information is publicly available anyway.
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the issue of planning your career is always a challenge. You're offering some counseling services and guidance services. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I remember when I was at high school, there was a great deal of confusion
Yeah.
in terms of which path we're going to take. How are you assisting the learners in that area?
Mr. Mogobe, I'm thinking of the quote by Confucius. And he said, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Wow, I like that.
So I don't know if you're working
Yeah.
and whether you're doing what you love.
Me, I'm chilling. I'm chilling. Yeah.
That is important in selecting a career for yourself. You have to know yourself, and I'm talking here about our high school students. It is a time akin to getting to know yourself, your interests, what energizes you, what excites you, what are your talents, what are you good at. And then with that, you see as to what careers are out there. You have to do research on that, and I'll speak a little bit about the parental and the school's role in that just now. But for the student, what careers are out there that matches what excites you, so that you can do what you love? And in answering this, I'm tracking it a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm starting at the end and bringing it back. You know.
Yes.
So what careers are available to you? And then together with the parents and the school, you then see, okay, what tertiary programs connect to the career that I'd like to follow? And once you've got the tertiary program that you'd like to follow, you then set goals for yourself. You look at your subject selection. What subjects do I need to select to get entrance into this tertiary program?
Yes.
And what results do I need to achieve with these subjects to be granted entrance into this tertiary program?
Yes.
And I'm imploring parents to assist their children in having these conversations and not to be dismissive of it, because they have their dreams and they have their understanding of the world, which might be different from yours, but to have that open communication as a family and rather ask qualifying questions. Why do you think that would be a great career to pursue? Why do you think this is a good institution to study at? What programs does it offer, instead of just being dismissive and wanting to tell them immediately what your view is and what they should become.
Wow.
And then the school's role in that is we have a resident educational psychologist on site, which is able to really assist in this
He's offering
process
counseling
as
services,
well.
career
Yes.
counseling.
Yes, yes. And we also invite tertiary institutions to our school to come and share with the students what programs they do offer.
How often do you do that?
Not enough, and I'm saying this knowing that I'm saying this, you know. I think our focus is mainly Form 4, but we need to start that earlier.
Yeah.
To reduce that anxiety of, you know, being
So
of
you'll
school
invite a
leaving
lawyer
age
and an
Yes.
architect,
Yes.
an IT specialist to come and speak what the job
Yes.
involves.
And also thinking always what isn't within your control. Parents shouldn't wait for us to go about that, but we also know in the community, we know people of different professions, and if your child is interested in a certain profession, phone up that colleague, phone up that family friend of yours and say, you're a lawyer, this is what my child is interested in. Share with him or her what it takes to to be as good as you are, you know, and to enter this profession. So again, I see that triangle of working together and seeing as to what direction or career a student should take.
And of course, we're always learning that the attention spans of our children and has, with the advent of social media, has gone shorter and shorter and shorter. So it will take quite a bit to guide them through at that early stage. Yeah. So I'm sure that these are things that your counselors are focused on and working on. Now, I want you to ask you the crystal ball question, which is to say, if you had a crystal ball and we're looking forward and projecting 5, 10, 20 years down the line, what's the future you see for GIS?
There's so many answers to this question depending on who I look at when I answer you, whether it's the people I work with, whether it's the school, whether it's the holding company. But success is the first word that comes to mind. We established, we've been around since 1993, but we've also evolved. And I don't see that stopping. So for me to see as to what it will evolve into, I cannot tell. But I know that we've gained momentum and we will continue growing into that. The school is of a good size. We are close to capacity. I don't foresee us necessarily enlarging our own campus, but we are definitely...
What about setting up another one in Maung or Francistown?
That sounds exciting and something I can definitely share with my MD and the CEO and see, you know, what does the market say and whether that is something to explore. But let me answer you within my role is to ensure that we live up to that one-liner that I summarize my vision for the school is to ensure that our students achieve their aspirations through superior education. So crystal ball for me, next 2-3 years is to make sure that we are superior in our offering, not only in our academic results, but every aspect of the school, every client touch point. Every experience that our colleagues or my colleagues have in calling that their workplace, every experience that the child might have within or outside of the classroom, it would be for us to make sure that quality assurance, that what we are doing, we are not only doing that well, but we are delivering on a superior level on that.
Wow. Well answered. One question that I almost forgot to ask you is having to do with education itself. There's a school of thought that says it's not necessary for children to know how to dissect a frog, for instance, and those sort of things are irrelevant. There's a school of thought that says we don't need to know about Shakespeare and those literature, and you don't need to know the history of when when Hitler invaded Poland and all those things, and that the focus should be focus on STEM, focus on things that will actually be translatable in the marketplace. I wonder where you stand on this big philosophical debate that is raging.
Two answers come to mind. I'm referring again to Bloom's taxonomy and different levels of thinking. So maybe to some of our viewers or listeners who's not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, there's different levels in thinking that you start with understanding, remembering, then it's application. After that, it's analysis, evaluation, and then creation.
Wow.
So that's your level of thought. So if you need to create something, you have to have an understanding. You must remember what you understood. You must be able to apply that in a new setting. You must analyze, looking at what skills or what parts of the content do I need to create this new thing that I'm creating, right?
Yeah.
You evaluate, is it working? Is it not working? How can I replace that aspect? And then you create. So since we're talking about business, maybe that's a good analogy to use, right?
Yes.
So you need all those levels until you can create. Now, some of these schools or aspects of what you've mentioned now, whether it be Shakespeare, whether it be history, it might be different for different people as to what they'd like to include or exclude as to what's necessary or not necessary. But it does have a foundational place for me in understanding the world we live in. And if you don't have a sound understanding, you won't necessarily know where the rest of the parts come together for you to build the rest of the skills that I've mentioned on that. So for me, a well-rounded individual will have this knowledge because they do understand then where do they fit into the world, how it's similar or how it's different, and what they value might be different in these different worlds that I'm talking about. You know?
Yeah, no, I'm following
but
you.
if you don't have that context and you only start with, let's say, STEAM, that's important, but it really focuses on the higher order thinking skills. So that would be your analysis, evaluation, application. But what are you basing it on? What is the context? Your the whole, I would say, a room, and I want to be able to enter this room and look around at the content that
Yes.
I've acquired throughout my education and see which parts of this content do I now pick to build the rest of the Bloom's
Because
taxonomy
the other
to create.
part is a foundational infrastructure
Absolutely.
that you need to be able to master those STEM courses. So basically, if
Yeah.
I hear you correctly, you're saying you need this seemingly relevant stuff because it helps you understand the world in a broader way.
It puts it in context for you. Then the second part of my question, or your question, my answer would be, I used to be an English teacher. I did teach Shakespeare. I did teach poetry, and my students would ask me, why are we doing this? What is the relevance? And I needed to answer them. Really, it was important that they obtain excellent results, because even if you want to become a lawyer, you don't want to become an author per se, you need a certain result in order for you to get that tertiary entrance, right?
Yes.
Even an engineer, it's not an author or a public speaker, but you need a certain result in English to enable you to be granted entrance. So I thought to myself,
Because you're going to be communicating at that level.
is it.
Yeah.
That is it. So I explained to my students that it's not about Shakespeare to me, or my personal convictions as to whether he's a great author, or I'm using it as a vehicle. Any poem that I'm teaching you or we are discovering together, it's a vehicle for you to learn how to read English, how to respond to some of the questions, and how to construct an essay where you actually, again, the pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy, where you understand the poem, that's the bottom.
I think you'd love that one. I think
And
it's
then-
very illustrative. It's very just say it again. It's called the what?
Bloom's
Bloom's-
taxonomy.
And it comes from a person called Bloom.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about that, how it came about, because it seems important, so that the viewer can seek additional knowledge on that.
There's different taxonomies that a person can use. So for me, that's the one that I usually revert to. And the aim of the taxonomy is really just to explain that there are different kinds of thinking. That it's not just all on the same level,
Yeah.
but different levels of thinking will require...
Taxonomy is a way of describing the
Hierarchy.
levels, the
Yes.
hierarchy. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So if I can use English as a vehicle to teach you those skills. So I'm teaching you to analyze a poem. It's not about the poem, but I'm teaching you to analyze. If I can teach you to evaluate, because you are going to construct an argument, was Hamlet justified in being angry with, his uncle for having murdered his father? You have to construct an argument.
Yes.
That's what I'm teaching you. It's not about the author per se, and there is a place for that, but I'm saying when I get confronted with these kind of questions, I choose to explain it that it is a vehicle, and that's why we teach our students how to think, not what to think, using those different levels.
So they're just instruments for learning how to think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Well put.
I've never heard it explained like that. I appreciate that. Thank you for educating me. All right. As we conclude our conversation, this is the time now where you get to ask me a question, if you have one.
I have one, and it might be a controversial question in a sense. I've read a bit about your book, or the first parts of your book. I'm very keen to continue reading.
Wow.
And thank you for telling all of the viewers and listeners, where to get a copy of your book. It seems like a must read. But you've had a different educational experience. How do you think, should you have had exposure to what we are offering, what difference would it have made to you? Because you seem to have overcome a lot. Just the sub-slogan of your book there, from the cattle post to entrepreneurship. But also in your personal disposition towards education. Having been in a school like the one we offer, do you think that would have made a difference to
in other
you
words,
as an
if I
individual?
if I had gone to GIS, would I have turned out differently? That's the question. Or how
Correct.
would I have turned out? It's a tough question to answer, because we were lucky enough. We came up before really the advent of private schools. I'm talking 70s and 80s when I was attending school. And those days, the government was putting a lot of resources in public schools. I went to Lesedi, which is still around, still doing very well. I also went to GSS, which is considered still the top school. So I think where I went was ideal for my time. It's difficult to reverse engineer in my mind how things would have turned out, but certainly there was no internet at my time. Certainly there was no, there was no Wi-Fi. There was no technology, wasn't this advanced. So it's always, but I was still very curious. And I do not know, because I look at my own kids and I look at the way I've quote-unquote spoiled them. And I say to myself, if I did not experience that hardship and that toughness, the idea of being beaten up for being late, the idea of being punished corporally, would I have turned out the way that I did? So I would just want to philosophize and said, I needed the tough treatment that we got. I don't think I would have survived too much ease. I would have. It was good to be able to be brought up in that rustic, rough environment, and I touch about it in the book. That actually, looking back, because Steve Jobs says we connect the dots backwards. We don't see, but looking back, I needed that tough experience. So I think I would not have gotten very. I don't know. It's a very tough question to answer. In fact, this is arguably the hardest question I've had to answer, because I'm looking at my kids sometimes when I want them to do things, just to walk long distances, to forget about taxis and things. They think that's abuse. Whereas I used to walk all over Gabs, and and it was good for my body and my fitness. So it's a tough question. I'm going to cop out and not give you an answer. But I think I've given you enough pointers to say.
I understand.
I think what I had was better. Really, it's better. Okay. Now, as we conclude, you have to look at that pupil or that parent, whoever is watching, and leave them with something inspirational, something uplifting as we wrap up our discussion.
As a parent myself, choosing a school for my own child has been one of the most important and also difficult decisions that I've had to make in my life. A lot of consideration goes into that, and it's also an investment that one makes. I'm inviting you to visit GIS, both in person and on our website, www.gaboroneinternationalschool.co.bw, and come and meet our staff, come and look at our facilities, look at our equipment, see the passion that we have for education for yourself, so that this decision doesn't have to be so daunting to you.
Wow, that's great. Can you also give them directions as well as contact details online and elsewhere?
All of our contact details are available on our website. That would be the easiest for you to find. Even if you just input GIS or Gaborone International School into Google, it should be the first school that pops up there. But if you are driving on the A1, it's a left on Kubu, and the school will be on your right. You can't miss it. Absolutely can't
Okay.
miss it.
They should come straight to your office if they want to enroll.
There
Or
is an
to
admin
inquire?
office, yes, and they'll direct you to the marketing team who will be able to help you with the enrollment process. It's always handy if you are looking to enroll to bring along a copy of your ID and then your child's birth certificate, because then we can enroll right away.
Okay. You did a brilliant job, madam. You did a very good job.
Ke leboga, Ra.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay.